The following program discusses sensitive issues related to addictive behavior. Parents are cautioned that some material may be too candid for younger children.
I cannot believe it is 10 years celebrating life and recovery, and we are still standing.
We're still here. Do you have any idea how many lives, how many stories we've highlighted in the 10 years that we've been doing this program?
No, but those very people are changing lives. It's amazing. Come join us in the cafe. I can't wait to share this season with you. It's so fun.
We don't have no money. We're starving.
Be good.
Hello and welcome to Celebrating Life in Recovery. My name is C.A. Murray, and I am in the presence of the lovely and talented Cheri Peters, and I like to tease her because she is both lovely and talented. And this show always bespeaks a new season that is beginning. And Cheri, I'm told this is our 10th sitting together. We're in season number 10. Can you believe that we've done this 10 times, that you've been there for 10 years of programs?
10 years of programs, and every single time we start to put it together, I realize that this group that we have, the people that we're going to interview, are so rich, and they're dealing with such intense issues. And I forget it's a program again. I'm thinking this is ministry. Heck with the program.
Yeah.
I tell them, don't pay attention to any of these cameras. Let God take you this next step. And so it's really exciting that I still don't look at it as just another program.
Yeah, and it is not just another program. It is by default, we're producing content, we're producing television programs for this network, but it is active, ongoing ministry. And you know, they have a thing called objective camera, subjective camera. Subjective camera is a camera just kind of sits there and like is peeking in on something that's going on.
Yeah.
And that's what this program is kind of thing. Something is happening, and we get to look in and see what is happening and enjoy what is happening and be enriched and encouraged by what is happening. Yeah.
And I love that.
Yeah.
You know, and when you talk about content, this is the first year we're doing some changes, and they are huge. They're huge changes, and that they're in between seasons. People call us, or sometimes even come and stay at a week at the ranch, deal with some pretty heavy issues, or we go to churches and camp meetings and prisons and all that kind of stuff, and work with, you know, anger and addiction and eating disorders and workaholism and religious addictions. We work with all that stuff, but I thought, you know what, how can we do that for somebody that is looking on and says, I just need more. I heard what the guest said, I get what you're saying, but I need more. So we are starting our own studio, so that we're not having to fly here every single time, but our own studio at the ranch, smaller studio that we could drop content online. So if you go to our website, you could actually find things that will help you through the week or through your month, just to get your own legs underneath you. Because I believe for all of us are so uniquely gifted, and when we get that and we get some tools, we'll change the world. And so we're just going to drop content in. We're going to start to mentor people in a different way. And if there's anything that you want us to cover, just send us an email.
I do love that idea, and as I said to you before, it is the natural evolution of what you do here, for two reasons. One, you can't cover everything in 1 hour, and then you have several guests, so sometimes it's in 30 minutes or even less. So questions may arise, and people are saying, well, okay, I see that, but I got some questions. I need some more stuff. So now I got a place to go. And two, you may be called, or you may know someone who's in a similar situation, and you need some help knowing what to say and how to approach it. Because a lot of people, and we talked about this, a lot of people really want to mentor, want to help, want to do what they can. They don't know what to say.
Absolutely.
They don't know what to do. They don't know how to deal with that particular experience. And rather than going and say the wrong thing, they say nothing. So now I got some place to go to get some stuff that will help me in case I want to help somebody with this problem.
And what I love, because I've thought about how can we do that the best. So not only are we going to drop the content in saying, how, you know, here's 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes on this. And we're trying to keep it short because, you know, people don't want to stay online all day, but here's some short things. And then right underneath that, we'll say, if you have a question, you want us to go further, let me know what you need.
Yeah.
And then I'll grab somebody. Like, you know, see, I don't want to, you know that I love you, and you have some brilliant teachings, and you have some brilliant stuff. So if somebody needed, you know, some insight from a man's point of view on this issue, instead of me trying to figure out what do I think about that, I'll grab someone that I know and love. So, you know, here's some content, ask questions, what do you need, and we'll drop it on.
Yeah.
This season, I want to tell you what we're covering this season. Every season we go through a book. A friend of mine, he passed not long ago, which I'm really sad about, but he wrote a book called Victory in Jesus. And what I love about this book is Bill ended up putting some things in this book, was just talking about what is grace, what is salvation, what did God do, what's our response to that, and he's so brilliant. So the whole season we're going to go through a teaching on this. So if at the end of the season you say, you know what, I want the book, get it. It's a brilliant teaching. But I also have, because I wanted to, for people that don't really learn in the same way, is I wrote a book about just different aspects of who God is in stories. Same kind of teaching, but it's in stories. So this season we got God is Crazy About You available, Victory in Jesus available, and anything that you send us helps us to do this content thing. So if you don't want the books, just send us cash. So I'm just saying. But so we're looking at Victory in Jesus. We're looking at grace, and even before I want to start showing some of the Romans that we did is Victory in Jesus. What is grace? Is we start out with Romans 2:4, where it says, you know, God is so amazingly patient with us and gracious with us, from the child molester to the drug addict to the preacher that is angry or has religious addictions. I mean, he's so gracious with all of us. And in Romans it says, are you angry that he's so gracious? He's gracious because it leads us to healing, leads us to himself. And so we're going to start this whole season with that concept, is God will lead us home if we just say every day, I surrender.
Praise the Lord. I am impressed that several years ago you began to peg each series to a particular book, which became like the muse for that particular season. And of course these are two good ones. But it also gives the person who's watching, who wants to get some foundation, some place to go and some place to start from. And it does give a context for the whole series. So these are two great books. I have not had the privilege of reading this. I have to get this and read it. I think this is a really cool cover. I like
that God is crazy about you.
Yeah, God is crazy about you. And I buy books because of titles. Right. Just, you know, I'll see a book and then, oh, I like that title, I'm going to buy it and read it. I would buy this and read God is Crazy About You. Yeah, I would read that.
What was really, to me, even in the writing of this book, is when I was saved, I really got the fact that God was crazy about me. I got it. I mean, I felt like he was kissing me on the face every day. Couldn't wait till I got up to show me something new. I felt like for the first time I have a family that absolutely delights in me and adores me. And in the midst of my craziness, there's hope and there's a direction. But what was really crazy is every time I went out, I would watch God do something brilliant for someone else, and everything would be set up. And I'm thinking, is he doing this for everybody? How fun is that? You know, one little girl, Leknagik, Alaska, she's in the middle of nowhere, read Miracle from the Street, which was our first book, and all she did, she was being molested, her family are drug addicts, she's had people die of alcoholism, and she just said, someday I'd like to meet her. Right? And all of a sudden I get a call, 16 gigs in Alaska, and I end up on this island in front of this kid, and I think, it was the whole event about her? And so the aspect of God saying that, you know what, I promise you, don't look around at all of the big things that are happening. I care about you. I'm in your life. I'll move things for you. And the devil will scream, that's not true. And we have to really stop listening to the enemy and start saying, God, are you here right now? Do you see me right now?
Yeah.
And when he says yes, it is so sweet. So
you use an expression, I think no one else on planet Earth could use this and get away with it, but it has become such a part of who you are and your lexicon. I feel like kissing God on the face. It is such a, when you get the mental picture of where that is coming from, it is so sweet and so genuine and so Cheri. I really love that, yeah.
I think that even growing up in an abused home, that at times, even as a little girl, I thought, I wish somebody would even touch my face, would even, you see that kind of a mother kissing a child or a child kissing a mother. I never got that. And so to me, when all of a sudden I just felt God saying that, there's going to be a day that I will kiss you all over your face,
yes,
that I love you.
Yeah.
And I think it's so sweet that God knows our injuries and speaks right to them.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed. Yeah. So that's what that is the genesis of that, and it's a beautiful story, and it's a nice way to relate to God and to see God relating to you. It really is.
He truly is my father. Truly is my friend. And when the first time, I don't know why, but the first time he told me a joke, I could not stop laughing. And I thought, did you just tell me a joke? And everybody's like, God doesn't tell you a joke. That's not true. If you ask him, by the end of the day, he will tell you a joke, and I want you to email what it was. It's just crazy that we have a feeling that God is only this.
Yes.
And God says, if I was only that, I couldn't get you home.
Precisely.
I am everything to you.
Ultra relational.
Yeah.
Very much so. And he gives it to you in the way that you can digest it and accept it and let it become part of you. So we've got some good stuff this year, do we not?
It's so amazing.
Yeah.
Let's show the first Roland I want to show you of who's coming on. A friend of mine was a mess since she was little. I've known her for probably 12, 13 years. And her husband was convicted of being a perpetrator, child molester, when he was 18 in high school. He turned 18. He still has the same girlfriend. The day after his 18th birthday, they actually say, you need to register for the rest of your life.
Wow.
And he's been registered as a convicted sex offender since that time, and wanting to scream at somebody, you know what, I didn't do it. And the story is so sad, but so incredible watching this family heal. The other couple on this roll-in is some friends of mine that I love, Stacy and Aaron, and when I met them, they owned 5 strip clubs. They were very, very well-to-do as far as the monies that come in this industry. But something happened and God stepped in.
Yeah.
And it's like how, even when somebody says, what do you do for a living? And you're trying to figure out who you are spiritually, and you have to answer, I own the strip clubs in town. And it really vexed him. Like, how do I do this transition, and how do I walk away from everything I know? His family generationally has owned these clubs. His brothers, he was raised there, all of that stuff. Stacy, his wife was a stripper, and that's what she knew. And so now this family allows God to show them actually who they are in Christ. Wow. And most of us want to throw people like that away.
That was coming to my mind. Yeah. We just, first of all, we think they're beyond hope. There's nothing we can say, nothing we can do to reach them, so we just back away from them.
And even if I could reach them, they should pay.
Yeah.
They should pay.
Yes.
They wrecked this whole town.
Right, yeah.
And God said, I paid. Yeah. Jesus said, I paid.
Amen.
And it's such a cool thing that we have to get over that. None of us could pay. My debt when I came to God was too big.
Yeah.
So I want to have you watch this roll in and know that we can't pay.
Right.
We don't have enough.
So just to I was on parole after I got out of prison. I was on parole for 3 years, which it was a very hard parole when you're a sex offender.
It's impossible.
Yeah, they want you to fail. I can't go to parks, I can't do anything. But anyway, Rain gets pregnant, and I tell my parole officer about this, and she says, you can't even be around your kid until you take this class for sex offenders. And I was in prison, I didn't have to take this class.
Right.
But I'm parole, I gotta take it. So for me to even be around my own son, I gotta take a sex offender class. And so I do it.
Wow.
Do whatever I gotta do to be around my son.
About that time, my grandmother was getting out of the penitentiary. She had served her time. She got out early, actually, so I guess she didn't serve all of her time. And she heard about the living conditions being so poor, and sent my uncle for me, because she was going to be released, and we were going to.
So your bags are packed again?
Well, if I had any bags, I would have packed them. I put what few things I had into a garbage bag and put it in my locker at school. And my uncle was late picking me up. He got stuck in traffic. The plan was for him to come and get me, and then they were going to rescue me and take me back to my grandmother. And he was late coming in, and so I just had to walk home. And I got beat so severely that day, and not by my mother, but by her boyfriend at the time with an extension cord, and it was just awful.
I had woke up one morning, and I had just had it, and I went and I sat down in the shower. I turned the lights off and everything, and I was literally just breaking down, and I was really letting God have it. And just that, I upheld my end of the deal, where are you, and very, very colorfully letting him know that I wasn't impressed.
Right.
And but as it continued, I remember literally just throwing my hands out and telling him, you do it. A little more colorfully than that, but
right.
Literally those words, you do it. So I got myself together, and I got out of the shower, and I just went on with my morning like I normally would, and I went out and I turned the computer on, and there were 3 emails. I don't remember what the other 2 were, but part of the conversation with God was that I wanted him to make it very obvious. I mean, like
the direction.
Right.
Like, what do you want me to do? Where do you want me to go?
A big whiteboard with bright letters,
right.
So I don't get this wrong, because apparently I'm not doing this right. And I found that was the problem. I'm not doing this right.
Well, you know, one of the things that we did years ago, sitting right on this set, I remember you and I made a pact that we would not be shocked anymore by anything that happened, you know. This kind of story says a number of things, Cheri. One, no one is too far gone.
Amen.
No one is too hardcore. No one is so resistant that the Spirit of God cannot break down and change lives. 2, there's nothing that we can do that shocks the Lord, you know, or that makes him recoil from us. This industry has destroyed a lot of lives and done a lot of stuff, but God can reach into that industry and pull brands from the fire just like he can anyplace else. And that's what's so exciting about what you do and this kind of story, because if God can get in here and change this, then there's nobody that's too far gone for the Lord.
What's really interesting to me about all 3 of these, because you know, Adam comes, he comes drunk and still in his mess. And on the program, I remember looking at him and saying, how does it feel? Convicted sex offender, and you have to do that for 25 years, and you were just with your girlfriend in high school. And he said, you know, I just think, you know, I get by one day at a time, and I'm thinking, how about if you stop doing that with me? How does it really feel? I don't want to hear that stuff.
Right.
I don't want to hear what you tell your parole officer.
Yeah.
And finally he said, it feels horrible. I am so angry. I hate everybody, and I have to drink to survive. And when he said that, I finally got it. God has to get through somebody that says, I'm at the end of everything. And even when you get into some places, for God himself to reach in and pull one of his kids out in the midst of this darkness, it is a miracle.
It is a miracle. It is a miracle indeed.
And so to me, I love that. It's really tough when we start judging one another, because God says, don't, not even the angels are judging.
Yeah.
No one's judging right now. We're just trying to redeem. We're just trying to get them home.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what's so powerful about this whole deal. Because you get a guy, he's not checking passports or checking driver's license or carding anybody. He's with his girlfriend. And now for the rest of your life, because of an act, a series of acts, you get this label, you're put in this category that, you know, it defines a lot of who you are. And it certainly defines how a lot of people think about you. So now it's going to be the Lord and people like you will help me think differently about myself, because the world has kind of tossed me away. You
Exactly.
know? Yeah, and I'm not that. I'm much more than that.
Yeah. So to me, I think that it's really interesting to me is what is God doing to redeem people?
Yeah.
And so I was really glad to show that. I'm hoping that I didn't offend anyone, because I love these guys. And I feel like there's nobody out of the reach of God. There's nobody that grace can't change. There's nobody that God can say, let me change out your filthy garments. And nobody's innocent.
Yeah.
You know, and I would love to say, no, I'm innocent. I was framed. You know, all of that stuff. And God said there's nobody innocent. That's why Jesus died. And he did it all.
Yeah.
He did it all. We got to get that, surrender that, and let it change us. So the next Roland I'd like to introduce is Varianne Barker is a writer, and she loves to work with really at-risk women, puts them to work, blesses their lives, steps into their lives, all of that kind of stuff. But she had her own struggles and won my heart. She's trying to call me to see if I would interview an at-risk girl named Connie. But her story changed me. The fact that for a lot of us, we don't slow down to mentor and to reach into each other's lives, and when we do, it changes us, and it definitely changes them.
Yeah.
And so you've got Varian. I think on this Roland, you're going to see Connie. Connie is a mess. Her family was a mess. She's been abused her whole life, and then jumped into her addiction. And then a friend of mine, I love this guy. And Nico, if you're watching, I just have to say I love him. #1 cage fighter in the world in 1999, got so twisted. And he said at one point, I would not tap out. Yeah. I'm in it for the long run. You know, one of us is going to be dead at the end of this fight. And that was his life. So enjoy this next segment, because each of these stories are really different, but you'll see grace.
I remember one day my father wanted some money to buy more drugs, you know, so he kept after my mother, you know, for money. And finally I said, you know what, she has no more money. Why don't you leave her alone? And of course we got into this big fight, but I stood up to him. And I remember her having a nervous breakdown, and she ran to the bedroom. And I knew we had a gun in the house. And I ran behind my mother. She said, I can't take this anymore, and I'm gonna kill myself. So she grabbed the gun, and she took it to her head, and I grabbed her, and I took the gun from her. And I remember hiding the gun, and then stopping, and I looked in the mirror, and I was shaking like this. And I said, God, I can't do this. This is just too much for me. So I was still living with all those anxiety. So I would have anxiety attacks when I would try to go to job interviews or to fill out an application. You know, I was just totally shot.
So at that point in time is when God started to reach me through poetry. And if you ever see a puzzle, you need to see the picture in order to put that puzzle together.
Yes, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
But can you imagine putting that picture together, or that puzzle together, when you had no picture?
No.
So here I am in this world with nefarious, dark characters. I like to say clowns from out of town hanging upside down. And God, the Holy Spirit, Jesus Christ, our creative Father, thought enough of his child who was broken, who was lost, who was addicted, to start to give him words of compassion and empathy.
You're taught not to be judgmental. I mean, you receive that. You were told in the home, but then as you grow older and you get into society itself, you get the lessons you were being taught. So it taught me then that, okay, there must be a reason why year after year people will be here, they're not moving forward. It has to be more than that. So I need to sit back and get away from myself. And stop thinking that I am the example. And let me start looking at how I can give back.
What I love about those 3 interviews was Varianne Barker. When I first started talking to her, I thought she wasn't the one that we were even thinking about. But man, when she talked about how she had to confront the way she looked at-risk folks, the way she looked at situations, the way she talked to people when somebody said, hey, do you have $1? She said, I've worked my whole life. I've had 2 or 3 jobs my whole life and gone to school and worked hard. What do you mean, do I have $1? I have $1 because I worked. And she said when she realized the deficits that some people have with their abuses, she said, I repented. And I thought that as a mentor, she just was life-changing for me. And you met a couple of these folks, eh?
Yeah. Nico, Nico is hard to quantify. First of all, he's an unusual character. And he's been through so much, and he again is testament to the power of God to change a life and give a person who was abused and who abused a ministry of reconciliation and healing. What a neat guy. Somebody used to beat people up and objectify people and go in there and just try to murder them, basically is now trying to give them new lives, and because his life is new.
And when he won his title, they said he was Nico the Dragon. He says, now I'm Nico the Dragon Slayer. and I love it, just the bravado and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's really fun because he found his way back partially by watching this very program. And how crazy is this when he calls and he's like, you know what, I watched you guys and it gave me hope and I stood up. And so we're talking about this season going into that mentoring role. As I get older, I realize that I can help someone else stand up with all of their giftings, with all of their fears, with the enemy screaming that they're not good enough. I can say, don't listen to them because God wants to kiss you all over the face. You know, so even somebody like that is just saying that as they stand up, it is so rich and so beautiful.
And you see where God has brought, and that's why if you just sort of watch this show and then turn off the TV and go about your life, you haven't done everything that this show is designed to do. It's designed to motivate you, to encourage you, to equip you. And now we're moving into that in a great way. Because somebody like Nico, who saw this and said, you know, he was dissatisfied with his life. He just, but you're making money, he's doing movies, so from outside looking in, hey, he's got it. He's at the top of his game, he's the #1 in the world. You know, there's a planet, you're #1 on the planet. Then you're making movies, you're making a lot of movies, you got a lot of money. Has his own series. Yeah, your own series, you're doing a lot of stuff, and yet there's this God-sized hole in you, and you know it's not right. But you don't know how to, where do I go, what do I do? And one day you sit down and you watch a show and a ping, light comes on. Now I know. And then a few years later, you're on that show doing for others what that show has done for you. That sort of completes the circle and makes it really, really great. Yeah.
Absolutely incredible. We're going to go ahead and break. We'll be right back because you're not going to want to miss the rest of it. It is so amazing. This has been an amazing season.
The following program discusses sensitive issues related to addictive behavior. Parents are cautioned that some material may be too candid for younger children.
And we are back. And as you can see, this is going to be a, I don't want to say wild ride, but yeah, I think I'll say that. I think I'll say wild ride. This is going to be something as we look into the human experience and what God is doing to change and rearrange and just recover and renew people.
Amen.
Yeah.
And when you say that, to me, it's always the most incredible thing. I wish people could see behind the scenes, because the healing that happens, even putting this together, as you meet somebody and you're on the road, or they come into your life in any way, and all of a sudden you watch the Holy Spirit just do change after change after change. Sometimes you can't even recognize folks that their journey has been so rich. And so, you know, as we get to do that, and as you get to see that, it is a ride.
Yeah.
And God is just saying that I promise you, you trust me, and I will do the rest. And you know, my journey, you know, it's been years. I've been clean 35 years. That's ridiculous to me. I'm now, instead of looking to be mentored, I'm looking to mentor someone else.
Yes.
And that whole role starts to change. And God says, even in that role, Cheri, don't think I'm done healing you. We had a major, major crash, right? Major crash. I don't even think I'm going to survive, and I'm trying to figure out something. And God says to me so sweetly, Cheri, what did I promise you when you were saved? And I'm thinking, what did he promise me? Because I think he promised me the world, and I think everything changed, and it was just amazing. He said, nope, I promised to get you home. I promised you the day after resurrection.
Yeah.
I promised you there's going to be a day that you're going to look for this crazy stuff and this pain and this not working out or somebody being hurt, and you will not find them anywhere. Every tear will be dried. So even in this season, being able to say is we're going to show all this kind of journey along the way, but we're going to keep bragging on God. He promised to get us home, and we're on our way home.
He did. You know what impressed me, and we talked about this on another show, that you know, we talked about the camera looking on something that's ongoing. You have had times when you saw a breakthrough right here on set,
It's
and
so
you kind of
fun.
just stopped the production process and said, hey, I see some ministry time going, and so the ministry time just superimposes itself on the production time, and lives are being rearranged right here on the set.
And what I love about that is that we think God, when the camera's gone, you know, on, God's already done the work.
Right.
But that's not true.
No.
So you do get that moment. Like there were times that I changed right on the set. You know, you know, Stacy and Aaron were talking about when I interviewed their brother, Aaron's brother, years ago, and I'm so angry. My sister's a stripper. She's dying in the hospital. He's a strip club owner, and I want to strangle him. I don't want to interview you. I don't want you here.
Right.
I don't think grace is for you. You know, I made a mistake about all that, but I'm feeling that angry. And he comes on and tells me his story, and I realized that, you know, he got hijacked as a kid with sexual addictions and with his family business. And at one point, I started to cry when he asked me, "Would you forgive me?" For every girl I have damaged, for every club I've opened, nobody's ever said this to you, but I'm sorry. And all of a sudden I saw the grace of God working in everybody's life, and we had to stop.
Amen. Yeah. You know, victimization plays itself out in so many ways.
Yeah.
You know, some people just lie down and sort of go into the fetal position for the rest of their lives and just remain victims. Others victimize others generationally. Others turned into hard, cold people. Others become dupes and pawns for anybody with a game. You know, you got so many things that when you run into that and you see a little light come on, I know you immediately kind of stop it and kind of mind that thing and fan that flame, and that's good because reclamation supersedes production. And you can do them both, but if you see a little light come on, hey, you got to chase that thing and get it done.
And every time you see that, it's amazing to me when you actually see who God created that person to be. I'm so proud of God.
Praise the Lord.
You know, sometimes we're hiding behind all our addictions, all our craziness, and God says, you know what, if you got to see him, if you got to see her, you would be honored.
Yeah, yeah. When you take a person like Rika we saw a little bit ago, who is either beating up somebody or beating himself up to the point of bloodying his own face with his own fist.
Yeah.
You know, that's crazy stuff. And yet God can reach down and take a person who, some people cut themselves, but I'd never heard anybody punching themselves bloody, you know, kind of thing.
Bashing his face in a brick wall.
Yeah, yeah.
Hated himself.
Yeah, hated himself, just hated himself. And now has enough love of God in him to love others, and most importantly, to love himself.
It's so cool.
It is. It really is.
So I'd like to introduce you. The next rolling that you're going to see, when I first met Angela and Jay, I was numb. It felt like that their pain became my pain. It was so intense. But Angela and Jay, Angela was at home watching the kids, having a great day, throwing some clothes in the laundry, and so her son was quiet, and so she walked around trying to find her 18-month-old son, and she said, I just all of a sudden went to the backyard, stood by the edge of the pool, and he was in the bottom of the pool.
Wow.
And everything changed in their life. Jay comes home for lunch. He's a veterinarian. Comes home from lunch, and there's a helicopter parked in his front yard with all the rescue things, and nobody had called him. He said he just started screaming, like, what happened? He said, somebody drowned. What do you mean somebody drowned? This is my house.
Yeah.
Everything changed for them, and it was. I don't think they don't try to make this a pretty thing, but their journey back to God, their journey back to each other, their journey to recovery was so amazing. So amazing.
Yeah.
So and then Lisa, there's another guest that we're talking about, is that she, incredible woman, married, fell in love, all that kind of stuff, has 4 kids, one after another, dealing with autism, severe autism. And then we've got Damas, that I met him 18 months ago and looked at him, and he was the walking dead. And just what happened in his family, in his life. And 18 months later, he's back on the top of his game. So fun. So enjoy this. It is an amazing, amazing season.
First of all, I'm yelling for help and I could not save my child. So my second child comes in, 12 years old. He became 27 within 3 minutes. You see, he's a little child. And he's suddenly in the bottom of the pool. And the enemy speaks, now I'm going to take them both. I'm here to tell you the rubber met the road right there in my soul. Because now 2 of my children are in the pool. And I can't do anything. I remember falling to my knees on that concrete and I said, God, you have got to do something.
I could have been there. You know, I spend my whole life, day to day, since I'm a veterinarian, I'm working really hard to save 1-pound kitten. Happened to me yesterday. I was successful, yet I was not afforded the opportunity. And I was not successful with my own son. There's a lot of inequity there that really will grind on you over a long period of time. And just like you said, you got all these big questions. Just like you said, it was whose fault is it? Why did it happen? And the idea that all those would come and you might scream those out. You might, but you'll scream them out in really slow motion over about 5 years.
Every day something happened. And as I'm doing high ropes with my son, and stuff, and we're there working to build it to work as a team. It's about challenging relationships.
Right. As you're connecting with him.
As we're connecting with him, he got me through a challenge when I says, I can't do any more, son. He pulled himself out, and this is where the parent became the child and the child became the parent. And he says, Dad, I believe in you. You can do this. I know you can. I'm like,
I love that. Are you kidding me?
No, my son, I'm like, this is my cool, calm and collected, phlegmatic son, you know, he just cruises in life because that's the way he handles special needs, you know, and he's like excited. You can do that, you're so close. We ended up being one of 3 parent-childs that summer to make it to the end. And I was exhausted. And you know what? Something happened inside my brain. Whatever it was, it actually let me know that I was truly valued.
Amen.
That I was truly loved.
That you're not done yet.
And I'm not done yet. And my son saw something in me that I didn't.
You know what I really loved, it was so powerful to me about our guest, especially Angela and Jay, is that Angela came on and she really is used to speaking in front of people about her loss and about her recovery. Men grieve differently. You know, they really handle that differently. And when at one point, even during the program, Jay had to get up and walk out of the room and come back, and he said, you know, for him, it was years later. He's trying to fix everything. He's trying to make his family, help his family survive. He's trying to do the shopping, wife is in bed, and he's like, you know what, his grieving was different. And I think he clearly gifted us with a little snapshot of how maybe men would handle this. And I think for men that don't speak often, that don't, you know, we grab our friends and go for a walk and call someone, and he said, you know what, he didn't share with anybody hardly, and now he just repents of that. And if somebody even dies in his community, he will go out, especially children, when people are bearing children. He said, I just go stand there, and if they want to speak to me, I'm available.
Amen.
And you know, Lisa, I just love her and the struggles and the passion she has to trying to make it right. And the guy that from New Zealand that, you know, 18 months later, and he is so powerful and so passionate about God and so right there. And I know that we shouldn't say, man, and I get to be a part of that. How cool is that? You know, I know that there's probably something that somebody wants to warn you about that, but I want to celebrate. I just think, how cool is that? I feel like he's my spiritual brother. I feel like, you know, somehow on the other side of all of this kind of stuff in eternity, that we're just going to look at each other and go like,
praise the Lord.
Yeah.
You know, in thinking about Angela and Jay and their experience, and having pastored in New York City, I know that the loss of a child when in the care of one of the parents can occasion a breakup of that family. It's like, okay, I'm at work, you're home, you're supposed to be watching and taking care of you.
Yeah, where were you?
Yeah, where were you? You know, kind of thing. So they've beat the odds on so many levels. One, they're still believing in God and believing in His ability to keep and to hold. 2, they are going through this together. It's not, I'm here and this is on you.
Yeah.
Because I'm working and you're supposed to be doing your job. You aren't doing your job.
I so fell in love with this couple, but Jay especially, because all of this chaos is going on. Helicopters, his son is dead, they're working on him, had worked on him for so long. But he walked through all of that chaos, all of that screaming, all of that, even neighbors screaming like, what's happening? And he walked to his wife and he put his hands on her face and he said, this is not your fault. And I thought, he did what?
Yeah.
And so he really addressed that early on, and not that it was easy for the next few years, but she said, I couldn't believe he did that. I couldn't believe he looked right at me.
Yeah.
And what he said, even in the interview, is that, you know, that I know how much she loves this boy. I know her as a mother. I don't know what happened, but I know this was not your fault.
Yeah.
And so even if you are doing a loss, and I love the fact that we get emails from people that said that I couldn't even hardly watch the program, I was just in tears. But if you are doing a loss or you don't know what to say to somebody that has lost a child, these programs will really help you on what to say. Because remember, we're switching in a whole different way. How do we mentor? How do we equip? How do we let people know that this is not, here's some tools that you can do if you're in that situation? Because I have been in a situation where a friend lost a child and I was so devastated that I backed away instead of came forward. And I will never do that again. I can't change that.
Yeah.
But I have tools now that I won't do that again.
And that's the thing. Most people, simply because they don't know what to say nothing and sort of just fold their arms and just back away. Because the truth is, there's no perfect thing to say. You know, there's no like you can get out of a box and kind of mix it hot water and stir it and it's perfect. You know, it's just not. It doesn't work that way. But the fact that they're still together, there's no blame, there's no rancor, and they're holding on to each other. That's what's powerful, and that's what we can take away. That it doesn't. This kind of loss doesn't have to tear you apart. It doesn't have to tear your family apart. There is no cookie cutter solution for grieving. Everybody grieves differently, and men and women grieve differently. Husband and wives may grieve differently, but you can grieve together, and you don't have to push each other away.
And now I want to go to the next Roland, but I want to say the 12 years, she couldn't get to the bottom of the pool because she was screaming and breathing in water and unable to, and she's a swimmer, but she said, I couldn't get there. And so her 12-year-old son jumped in and brought his dead brother up in his arms.
Wow.
And that boy now works for the United Nations. That boy says, I live my life twice as what I would have to honor my brother. So everybody not only survived, but incredible, incredible family.
Oh, man, that's a great, great story. That's why you have to watch, because we are giving you the tease. We're giving you the aerial view. You need to get right on the ground and get up close and look at this stuff, because it will change your life. It will encourage you. You will laugh, you will cry, but you will be encouraged to see the power of reclamation and what God can do for two individuals who simply put it out there and say, God, take it. It's too heavy for me. I can't deal with this. You've got to take it. And he can, and he will, and Cheri, he does.
And we're going through the Victory in Jesus, Bill's book. But in the book, God is Crazy About You, one of the things that I was trying to figure out, you know, how does God heal us? What does it look like? But one time I was speaking at an event, and when I'm speaking at this event, this woman comes up to me, and she simply says, does your mother love you yet? And my mom, I love her. She's incredible, but we never bonded. She was damaged, I got damaged. It was not, I don't think it was anybody's fault. I mean, she wasn't evil and meant to hurt me. And
right.
It was just all of the damage was so severe, and addictions and all that. But when this woman said that, I started crying, and it caught me off guard. And I'm embarrassed because I usually don't, and I'm crying, and she just held me, and she said, I want you to know that I love you.
Wow.
I love you. And I kind of just was in her arms and trying to figure out what's that about. And a little while later, like a few months later, I see her again, and she says, I talk with my whole family, and we'd like to adopt you. And I'm thinking, wait, I'm 43 years old. What do you mean adopt me? But when she said that, first time in my life, in my own skin, I felt like a wanted child. It was so bizarre. And we talked about the bizarreness of it, and she said, I know, but I think it's from God. So she adopts me. Her family adopts me, John and Marcia. So then I get home from a gig, I get the mail, and I get a birthday card. Happy first birthday. A little tiny kitty cat or something, and I'm thinking, how funny is this? And then the next week, happy second birthday. And she said, I'm going to send you a birthday card every week until I catch up. By the third week, I'm by the post office, I'm by the mailbox, and I'm waiting, and I open it up, and it's a little duck holding an umbrella. And she said, if I would have been there when you were 3, I would have held you and told you how beautiful. And I am weeping, and every part of my body starts to heal. Yeah. I finally feel like what it feels like to have a mom, what it feels like to have that. So even when we start to trust God with our recovery, and we start to say, God knows exactly what we need to heal, and if we are open to that everyday thing, staying present in that day, literally knowing that God himself is our counselor, that he is going to come and wrap around what we need, that he'll bring in healing. And so the reality for me is that we will get what we need from a God who knows what we need and is trying to get us home. Yeah. It's just amazing.
It is amazing. Before you go to the next little bit, there's a text that comes to mind, just one verse. 2 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 14. Paul writing to the church at Corinth says, and of course, when you talk about the Corinthian church, you're talking about dysfunctional church. If the Corinthian church should be on Celebrating Life.
They were a mess.
Yeah, because they were a mess. They were a mess. So Paul is saying, now thanks be to God who always leads us in triumph in Christ. Amen. You know, I'm thanking God because triumph is guaranteed. And that's what this show highlights, and through us, he says, diffuse the fragrance of his knowledge in every place. So we thank God because at the end of the road, there is victory, there is triumph. God always leads us in triumph. If you trust him, if you put it in his hands, if it's too big for you to carry, it is not too big for him. Just because you're clueless or I am clueless doesn't mean he is. He's got an answer. So he always leads us in triumph in Christ. And that's what we see. No matter how far you've gone, no matter how long you've been there, he can go down, reach down, and pull you back. And that's what's so fabulous about this whole thing.
And what I love about that is when you get into the Word of God and you actually start to open up what does God say, is over and over and over he says the same thing. Is I will lead you, I will do it. Yes. You know, and you know, somebody could have met me like you met me years ago, right? I'm much different than I am than I was then. I mean, the things that I've dealt with, the things that God has allowed me to surrender. Hopefully next year I'll be surrendering something else, or 5 years from now. But God says, I will lead you in all of those ways. And when we step alongside of each other and actually figure out what he means by that, we can heal.
Yes. Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah. Praise
so
God.
Cool.
Praise the Lord.
I want to, the next group of folks I want to introduce you to is Richie and Timmy Brower. They are marriage counselors, and that cracks me up because they were a mess. They were a mess. They shouldn't even got married. They fought during the whole engagement. Their first couple years of their marriage was so bad because she was so damaged, and then and he thought he was all perfect, but he was raised by a hoarding mother and had all kinds of stuff and divorce and everything. Oh, wow. But when they started to heal and realized how powerful God is in healing, they had to teach someone else. Amen. I got to teach somebody. Yeah. And then Donald and Janelle Owen, they have run our group Celebrating Life and Recovery in the community, but they have really been in bondage to sexual addictions and divorce and abuse and insecurity, and they talk about that. They may be offensive to some because they talk so openly about that.
Yes.
I wanted to just hold them and thank them for their honesty. But you know, enjoy this next group of shots because it's a pretty amazing stories.
All the things we didn't know smashed us on the head like an anvil. Would that be appropriate?
Yeah, so we went off on our honeymoon. I mean, like a lot of young couples, we had you know, said we're going to save physical intimacy for marriage, and so we were excited about the honeymoon and talking about how great this is going to be to connect, you know, sexually, and we're looking forward to it. And so we leave our wedding day exhausted, you know.
That's a tiring day.
And hungry.
Yeah, and hungry. Yeah. And we head off on our honeymoon, and everything fell apart.
Wow.
I had a dream, and I know where it came from. It came from God. And he spoke to me through that dream. It was very intense. I was in a bar drinking, having some fun with some friends. They were sitting down, I was standing up. This old man walks in. He had a long white beard, long white hair, had made eye contact with me. He literally looked me in the eye. He said, "God is coming." And I just shot up on my bed, and I just literally ran in the living room. I've never read a Bible before. I grabbed the Bible, started reading it, and I'm like, why am I even doing this? I started crying. I'm like, I don't know what's going on.
And so I saw those changes, and I knew that it had to be God. It had to be, you know, way beyond him because of the repeated times that he tried to change. And so we decided at one point, actually, he was ready. Each time, like each step towards God, he was ready before I was. But he wanted to get rid of our porn stash and our toys and stuff. And so I said, well, no, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. Yeah. And so he got rid of some of his stuff. And so, you know, eventually, I don't know the span of time there, but eventually I wanted to do the same thing.
Janelle and Donald are people that I've known for a while. Did not know that history. And it says a couple of things. One, it says that the Lord can so totally change you and rearrange your personality that as I see you now, I don't even know that you had that kind of past.
Right.
That shows how thoroughly a life can be reclaimed.
When she talked, it was so interesting to me because what she said is, I just don't want to keep hiding. She was hijacked in a sexual addiction from the time she was a little girl when people were divorcing and relationships were falling apart and all that kind of stuff. And she said, I don't want to offend anyone, but I don't want to hide because God was so good. And you know, I burned all my pornography, all my toys, literally changed my life, where somebody is shocked when they hear the story because they just think if anybody's a saint, it's Janelle. She's just beautiful and pure and stuff. And she said, you know what? I am that now.
Yeah. No, but I was not that then.
And then even in Richie and Timmy, the same kind of thing is they have this history that's just crazy. And God says, you know, let me change everything, and then go teach someone, go mentor someone else, take it out, don't hold it just for yourself. So we're going to go ahead and take a break right now, but the whole thing for this season is go tell someone, heal yourself, and then tell someone else.
All right.
The following program discusses sensitive issues related to addictive behavior. Parents are cautioned that some material may be too candid for younger children.
As we look back at this season, I am so glad that perhaps the last story moved us or transitioned us, because Donald and Janelle are recovered, and now have actively leapt into helping others to recover. And that's what you're trying to foster at this point in your life and your career. You've been mentored, now you're self-actualizing. You're actually putting tools and mechanisms in place so that what you do, you've run all over the world, but you can't keep doing that.
Absolutely.
So now you're getting other people to run and giving them the tools so that
and
they
they're
can
so
run.
good.
Yeah.
Better at it than I am. So it's even being able to say, and I'm going to show you just some of the tools we're using. Definitely Celebrating Life in Recovery and what we do here, but we're getting tools on, here's a 14-week program. You can do it at a home Bible, you could do it at a church, you could do it at a prison, rehab, whatever. But here's a tool, and we do training around that tool. If you're working with somebody in jail, here's some things that you can use for somebody in jail. Every week you can take them through a foundational work from Steps to Christ with questions and all that kind of stuff. And if you don't know how to do it, ask me to put something online and we will drop something on. We'll do a live question and answer and we'll figure out what do you need and how do we get that to you, because our whole thing for the next little while is to make sure that you are strong enough that you could go out and change the world around you. And if we could do that in every church, in my denomination alone, 78,000 churches, if 2 or 3 people actually get equipped, how fun would that be?
Yeah, yeah. We really change our neighborhoods. And plus, it would get the church out of the building and into the street where the needs are, and will enable us to really become relevant to those who surround the churches that we attend every week.
And we could actually do our own healing too, because when you speak healing, you kind of check yourself.
Oh, you do.
So you're doing that work too, which is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, yeah. So this, my dear lady, is going to be a wonderful season, a very powerful season, a season that really takes us again to the very depths and then brings us back and says, Jesus can do it all. He could do anything but fail.
And he wants to do it all.
Yeah.
So I want to just say, I am so excited about this season. I'm so excited about this upcoming year with the mentoring, the new mentoring thing. Go to the website, check it out. Make sure that if you need something, just get back to us and ask. Until then, always remember that God is crazy about you. Me too.
Said, you probably thought I was on drugs when you saw me, didn't you? And I said, honestly, yeah. And she said, I used to do drugs, but now I'm trying to get sober. And she was having some issues, but
that's incredible. I just want to say, you know what, thank you so much for sharing. And you know, for anybody looking, is even the demoniac in the Bible, there was a crazy guy filled with demons, and God said, go tell someone what I've done in your life so that you can help someone else. That's our gig, that's our healing. That's how we're going to really find who we are and be in our own skin. You know, until next time, always remember that God is crazy about you. Me too. God bless.